Violence has turned even uglier in Hong Kong. In video footages shot from different angles, black-clad young people are seen dousing obviously flammable liquid over a man before lighting him on fire on Monday. The man instantly went up in flames, and the footage has drawn strong anger and condemnation on Chinese domestic social media platforms as well as on international social media platforms. The chief executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Regional Government called the incident inhumane and stressed that it is wishful thinking to believe that stepping up violence will press the government to yield to any so-called political demands. This also came as violence seeped into the halls of higher learning as mainland students feel increasingly threatened on university campuses on the region. What can possibly justify such heinous acts? What can be done to prevent future violence, whether it's on campus or in the city? I'm joined by Victor Gao, Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization, and from Hong Kong by Cheng Siu Wai, Senior Lecturer from Hong Kong Baptist University. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. So, the CE, Carrie Lam, confirmed on Monday that a man was set on fire Monday morning. She called it an inhumane act. She said everyone is frightened and that citizens are worried whether they can live in the city safely. And as I said, an online video shows the man in green T-shirt was arguing with the protesters, and obviously they had some kind of confrontation as to whether they are Chinese or not. And then we see that a black-clad rioter or terrorist poured a bottle of inflammable substance onto the victim, and then a hand with a lighter lit the guy on fire. The injured man was sent to hospital for treatment, according to Hong Kong police, and we do not know what's the latest situation with that person. So, horrendous situation and horrible footages, if you have seen it on the social media. Actually, it's really so disturbing that some media has decided that it's not fit for public circulation. So, Dr. Gao, what does this amount to you?
I think violence in Hong Kong is taking a very dangerous deterioration, and I don't think media or other people should call these criminals protesters anymore. I think they are rioters, they are criminals, and they need to be brought to justice. I think the challenge for Hong Kong is to restore law and order, and the Hong Kong SAR government and the police force need to do their job. They need to do whatever they can to bring law and order back to Hong Kong so that innocent people do not need to worry about their safety, do not need to worry about their life. Otherwise, there will be no future for Hong Kong at all.
Well, if you look at some footages recorded on the streets of Hong Kong, for instance, people live in a kind of terror. I mean, when they see black-clad gangs of these people approaching, they fled. You know, they try to hide in shops or some other shelter they can find, nearby ones they can find, and they lower the, the iron gate of the shop so that these people cannot come in or loot or smash or, personally attack anybody. And then given the kind of violence that we saw against this guy, and he was not attacking anybody. He was not physical. He was just talking against these people. He was one by himself, and he was confronting these young people. The voice wasn't even too loud as far as I could tell. And yet, he was met with such atrocity. Still, why? What does this say to you? What is this to you?
I think this is the kind of case that we seldom seen in anywhere, and it shows that these people lack the basic humanity. They don't cherish human lives, and it is a failure of the education system in Hong Kong in the past years. Since these people are not very old, you could see in the last several decades, maybe a year, 1 decade or more, these people get the education in Hong Kong but didn't get this civic duty training, the basic education about being a good citizen, and also the basic humanity. I think this is the most important thing. That is why so many people in Hong Kong are thinking that the education system should be changed. to adapt to the situation and give the people the basic human training to be a good citizen in a cosmopolitan city.
Well,
that is something we need to do.
Well, just to be human, you know, and I really wonder, however angry they are, what has gone into their minds, men and women included, you know, holding up their phone, confronting this poor guy, and then what could have gone into their heads for them to spill, to douse inflammable liquid, possibly gasoline, and light this guy up? What could have gone into the heads of these young people? They graduated, you know, they graduate from primary school, possibly from middle school. They have received education, and the education system in Hong Kong is known to be good. Hong Kong society is known to be a civilized society where people respect each other. The lawfulness, the state of safety in Hong Kong had been good until 5 months ago. What could possibly have happened to these people that they're just, you know, not humans anymore at this particular moment, Dr. Gao?
I think these are criminals. What they are doing are very similar.
What kind of
or
influence
if
could they
not,
be under?
Yeah, or very identical to the fascists, for example. They behave and they mean terror, and they want to terrorize the society. I think these people belong to the extreme minorities among the majority of the people in Hong Kong. I hope so. And therefore, I think the Hong Kong government need to unite the people to stand for justice, to stand for justice, so that justice will get its hand over these criminals. No one should condone these activities, and no one should really be afraid of these activities. Everyone in Hong Kong should be encouraged to stand up and face such terror. Because if you fear terror, eventually you'll be overwhelmed by such terror.
But Mr. Siu Wai, let me ask you about the reality on the ground. I mean, the feeling that I get seeing the kind of video footages of how people are scared, you know, the kind of beating up, the kind of lynching, the kind of mob attacks against individuals like this poor man in green T-shirt, exactly shows that people dare not stand up. They are not organized. Individual citizens have no power against these, you know, young and hot-blooded men and women who are, you know, going everywhere, taking law in their own hands. What can people do at this moment to protect their lives, to save the city?
I think you have to rely on the law enforcement. But I want to add something to the previous question. In fact, it's not just a very small handful of people who are doing this extreme radical thing and horrific thing, because you could see another video circulated on the social media is that this morning when those rioters try to block the roads, and some people who take their roads on their daily work, one truck driver wanted to remove those roadblocks, and he was attacked by a group of teenage girls wearing their school uniforms. So it means that's not just some people at 20 years old and very hot blood, these macho guys. No, it's the young girls who are kind of brainwashed by all these fantasies or whatever, or by the glory or by whatever. They try to beat this man and try to stop him, and this man was beaten up by a group of people who are very young. It's the result of the kind of education. This kind of education produced these kind of young people.
Yeah, you were using the word whatever. Exactly what has been emboldening these young people to do incredulous things, to do such harm to their fellow residents, you know, to their fellow human beings at such a young age, girls and boys included. Victor.
No, I think there are evil forces going on in Hong Kong, and the evil forces indoctrinate young people, including as the other panelist was just now talking about boys and girls. Now, I would say there will be no excuse for whoever who commits such heinous crimes, and regardless of their age, regardless of whether they are in school or not, if they commit such heinous crime, they need to be brought to justice. And I think Hong Kong should be free from being held under the spell of such terror. No one in Hong Kong should tolerate such terror, and no one in Hong Kong should really live in the specter of such evil forces.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of students from the mainland, for instance, as I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, many students are living in fear. They are not sure whether they would become the next victim, especially after this one student was beaten, was mobbed for having done nothing. He had his hands in his pocket while he passed some students. But because of the fact that he came from the mainland, he was the target of a lot of the a lot of students, all people dressed in black, beating him up. So what is to be done that violence even spread in university campuses? And there is even this discussion that whether or not police should be allowed on the premises of university campuses. I mean, university campuses are not lawless places. They are part of the city. Why there is even this discussion? And that boy in white is exactly what I was talking about. He was unfortunately beaten, and we're seeing really an increasing amount of hostility, xenophobia against students from the mainland. Many of them are quite fearful of their safety. So why? What is going on on the university campuses against the mainland students?
I think these students who try to beat this mainland student in the University of Science and Technology, these students get certain kind of ill-formed logic. They vent all their anger against anyone who has close relations with mainland China, and they see the Hong Kong SAR government as a kind of puppet held by people in higher offices in Beijing. So they cannot reach them. So they want to try to reach whoever who is close to them and beat them and try to smash them. And that is why some of them vent their anger towards mainland speakers.
But that's totally, nonsensical. I mean, you can have your legitimate grievances, you can protest peacefully, but to resort to violence and to punish innocent students or residents, I don't know how that can be tolerated or accepted in any human society, any civilized society. Doctor, very briefly. Dr. Gao.
Oh, definitely. I think that's exactly the reason why the Hong Kong SAR government and the police force need to do whatever they can to restore law and order. Hong Kong is faced with this law enforcement task, which is very daunting, but nothing should be left undone in order to bring law and order back to Hong Kong. Right. Criminals and the terrorists need to be brought to justice.
Okay, we have to leave it there, but justice has to be done. Many thanks to Victor Gao and Chung Siu Wai. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Thanks for watching. You've got the point.